Hello, my name is Sarah Howe. I'm a poet and a trustee of the Griffin Foundation, speaking to you from London. It's my absolute pleasure today to speak to Ada Limón at her home in Kentucky. Her many prizes and honours are too many to rehearse now, but they include her recent reappointment as the Poet Laureate of the United States. Her sixth and most recent collection, The Hurting Kind, has been shortlisted for the 2023 International Griffin Poetry Prize, which is why we're chatting today. Um, Ada, in the book's title poem, I was so struck by this image of the grandmother packing peaches for her living and the way that the hairs hurt her hands and the
Mm.
surprise sting in that softness. Could you talk about the kinds of hurt you explore in this book?
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful question. That's a poet's question. Um, I feel like one of the things I was trying to get at was not only the way that the world can hurt you, but also the way that we can be open to a sort of tenderness, and to recognize that. And now sometimes that kind of hurt or that kind of emotional impact, whether it's packing the peach and realizing over and over again that the softness of the peach, actually those hairs can really irritate the hands, feels like a metaphor for so much of what we go through on our day-to-day lives, where when we allow ourselves to be open to emotion, there is also, we're letting in a lot of the other things too, right? A lot of the other hard things, a lot of the recognizing where we are today as a human species on the planet. Um, and so I think this book, at least what it tries to do, is to explore the many ways not only we can be hurt, but also the ways that we can be open to experiencing all of the emotions, in a way that that can actually lead us to a more wholehearted way of looking at the world.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. The book's sections run through a year's worth of seasons from spring to winter. Why did it feel right to arrange the poems like that, drawing attention to their seasonality?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. I had a trouble with it at first, trying to organize this book as opposed to my other books. I kept trying to figure out what made sense, what felt natural. And I never want to force anything. So I just wanted it to kind of feel effortless, even though, of course, we know it takes a lot of effort. Um, and what I realized was that I didn't want the narrative to be solely about the I. And so by making it with, organized by the seasons, it felt like, oh, this is right. This makes it collective. This makes it an experience that we all can go through, whether it's the natural world, the trees losing their leaves or gaining their leaves, the fox appearing, the fox disappearing. All of those things felt like, right, this is a way to speak to not only the collective, but also our connectedness. And it also felt right in some ways to remove the speaker from the full narrative of the book, even though I'm in it and the speaker is in it, I'm in it throughout it. I did also want it to feel in some ways like it belonged to everyone.
Um, in your poem, The First Lesson, we get a sort of origin story that shows us the young poet learning to watch closely the world. She's mesmerized by a bird's wing nailed to the wall. Is that disembodied wing a sort of emblem for your art or the attention it demands?
Yeah. In that poem, one of the things that struck me was that that wing is still on the wall of my mom's studio. And so it's not, yes, it's an emblem, but it's also a fact. And I think about that a lot, right? In poems where like it's actually also true. Um, and I think I'm fascinated by what it was to be raised, what it is to be raised by a woman who really wanted to look deeply at how things were made. And so her first thing, instead of finding the wing or finding the bird and thinking, oh, this is, terrible, she thought, oh, let me look at how each of these feathers work. Let me pull it apart. Let me see how it contracts and then and she allowed me that fascination. And of course there was fear, and of course there was sort of a gruesomeness to it, but there was also a level in which we are all animals. We're all bodies. There's many different ways of being in the world, and let's examine this. Let's look at this. And I think that kind of deep attention felt like not only a lesson, but a way of being.
You mentioned just now that lovely fox that pops up in one of the poems and is sort of freed from all the cares of human existence. And another poem talks about what we do in order to care for things. Is there any sense in which your poems are a kind of care in either sense of that word?
I love that. I think about caretaking a lot, not just for myself, which is important, but also for others. I think a lot about how many writers and artists are very sensitive. And it's a gift, but it can sometimes feel like a curse. And I think that we need to talk more and more about how we caretake each other, how we caretake our art, how we caretake the planet. And I think that we've been a little numb to that. We've been a little bit, we haven't given it the attention it deserves. And I think it's partly because we are always thinking about progress. What does progress look like? What does success look like? What does the finished product look like? And I think that as artists, we need to return to the wholeheartedness in the process, right? The caretaking in the process, the caretaking of just, for me, my garden, the ease that comes with that experience. Sometimes letting something grow outside of the raised bed because it's beautiful and I want it to grow. And so I think about caretaking a lot, but not just as a writer, but really as a human being moving in the world, and how we can do better to each other.
Thank you so much, Ada, for your time today. This conversation has been a gift. Beautiful. If you'd like to hear Ada read live in Toronto, then think about turning up for the Griffin Prize readings on June 7th this year. And thank you everyone at home for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.